What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and while I am in the flurry of last-minute preparations before we leave for Gen Con tomorrow, which, by the way, I will be there with a bunch of swag, I'll do another video on that before it comes out. Bigby's Glory of the Giants is here if you have the digital pre-order. The team over from WotC's PR sent me a code, so I have access to it here on D&D Beyond, so I thought, why not start the coverage now instead of trying to do it while at Gen Con or having to wait till after. So I have access to the entire book. There's also a free adventure. I think it's for level 16. It's available. We'll cover that in a future video, but it's called Giants of the Starforge. But it's one of those things you have to go and click and claim, and then it's added to your account. But we're going to talk about the subclass, the Beast Barbarian, Path of the Beast Barbarian, in this video. So we'll do our standard coverage we always do where we go through the stuff, but let's go ahead and dive in. But if you want to see more like this, stay up to date on the things. If you're going to be at Gen Con, I'm going to do more scavenger hunts where I place mugs and stuff and hide swag in them. So anyway, let's jump in. But subscribe to the channel was my point to that. All right, so here we are, Path of the Giant Barbarian. We've seen this art for a bit, and here we have the actual features. Now, we heard a little bit about this, but let's read what actually you get. So you have Giant's Power at 3rd level. You can speak, read, and write Giant and another language of your choice if you already know Giant. And you get either Thaumaturgy or Druidcraft as a cantrip. Wizard is your spellcasting ability for it. Both of those, I'd probably take Druidcraft personally, but either way. And then the other feature is Giant's Havoc at level 3. When you make a successful ranged attack with a thrown weapon, it's called Crushing Throw. With a thrown weapon using strength, you can add your rage damage to the attack's damage roll. I made a whole video where we kind of discussed this a little bit further, saying how the updated 2024 Barbarian basically does that already. So, like, that's not a unique feature. And then I was wondering, and we had kind of a dialogue in the comments on that, but, like, if this was a video game, they'd, like, patch that after that new update came to the main class. They would, like, give you something else, but either way. And then Giant Stature. Your reach increases by 5 feet, and if you're smaller than large size, you become large size, along with anything you're wearing. If there isn't enough room for you to increase in size, your size doesn't change. A point to note with that is if there's not enough room for your size to increase, your reach still does increase, the size just doesn't change. So consider that, right? If you're in a tight space and you use this, and this is just they're both automatically on while raging. You would get that reach increase even if you couldn't grow in size. Another thing I wanted to point out about this and the feats and other things in here, it was already commented on in a video. I think Todd Kenrick brought it up in one of those videos, that these are being designed and are designed with the 2024 rules in mind. So the feats, all of that are set to go. Even if you switch over to the 2024 version of the rules when they release, these subclasses, these feats and things are ready to go for that. All right, at 6th level, you get Elemental Cleaver. When you enter a rage, you can choose one weapon that you're holding and infuse it with one of the following damage types: Acid, Cold, Fire, Thunder, or Lightning. While you wield the infused weapon during your rage, the weapon's damage type changes to the chosen type and deals an extra d6 damage of the chosen type when it hits, and it gains the thrown property. With a normal range of 20 feet and a long range of 60 feet, if you throw the weapon, it reappears in your hand the instant after it hits or misses a target. The infused weapon benefits are suppressed while a creature other than you wields it. While raging and holding the infused weapon, you can use a bonus action to change the damage type. So this is actually a really good power. I know I've already seen some people kind of conflicting about the fact that it returns to your hand. I think this is fantastic. The concept of just being, whatever size creature you are, whether you're raging or not, well, you have to enter a rage to do this. Which is also something, right? It's not an always-on feature. While you're raging, it does the damage, and then while it is infused, it returns to your hand. But I like that basically you could be, with a greatsword and just throw your greatsword at somebody and it comes back. It also disappears and reappears. It doesn't, like, fly back to you. But this is pretty good because it's a long range of 60 feet, normal range of 20 feet. But being able to do, again, greatsword damage out to 20 feet could be pretty interesting. throwing this, doing 2d6 plus an additional d6 of an elemental damage type. The whole weapon changes to that elemental damage type. Could be really, really useful in combat to, again, maybe your weapon isn't magical and the creature you're fighting has resistance. Changing it to be acid damage might be beneficial because now that creature is going to take all of the damage as opposed to just the extra. Also, if you happen to run into something that's vulnerable to a certain type of damage, perhaps you can use that, or switch off from when you were doing fire. You can just use a bonus action next turn to possibly make it thunder damage to get around resistances. This is a very beneficial feature, and I think the flavor of being able to throw the weapon, throwing a maul, throwing a greatsword, even just your mace or whatever you want to do, pretty cool. All right, Mighty Impel at level 10. As a bonus action while raging, you can choose one medium or smaller creature within your reach and move it within your reach, which is important because, again, your reach is increased by 5 feet at level 3, so that's at a minimum anyone within 10 feet of you, and move it to an unoccupied space you can see within 30 feet of yourself. Any space. It doesn't have to be the full extent of 30. You could move them 20 feet because it also says an unwilling creature must succeed on a strength saving throw to avoid the effect. So you could use this as you just throwing one of your allies in such a way because this is... I think this counts as forced movement, so it's not going to provoke attacks of opportunity, but it also gives you the opportunity to help maneuver your allies around the battlefield a little bit to possibly better position them for the next turn. But you also can use this to potentially damage or throw off enemy combat. It also says if at the end of this movement the thrown creature isn't on a surface or liquid that can support it, the creature falls, taking damage as normal and landing prone. My only complaint about this feature is it doesn't provide you anything for throwing someone into something, right? The intention here is, right, you're throwing people to move them around the battlefield. You could throw somebody off a cliff and then they drop and hit the ground. But arguably, if you're throwing somebody with that much velocity, if you throw them into a wall, they should take damage, in my opinion, from hitting that wall. You throw them into somebody else, them and the person they get thrown into should take damage. I think, personally. I'm curious to see what you think. I thought maybe they were going to work in like the falling damage, like the number of feet they move. So if you threw them 20 feet, they would take 2d6 damage of like the equivalent amount of fall damage for that far if they like hit a wall or something. That might be the simplest way to do it, but I'm curious what you think. And then lastly, we have Demiurgic Colossus at 14th level. When you rage, your reach increases by 10 feet. So it was increases by 5 feet, it is now increased by 10 feet. Your size can increase to large or huge, your choice. And you can use the Mighty Impel feature from level 10 to move creatures that are large or smaller. In addition, the extra damage dealt by Elemental Cleaver you get at level 6 now increases to 2d6 from 1d6. Very good overall, a simplistic design in a lot of ways, but everything is clean, it synergizes well with itself, and is definitely an interesting addition to the Barbarian class as a whole. So I think I'm definitely a fan of this. Is this my favorite Barbarian subclass? No. But it is up there. It has a lot of really powerful and useful things. Like I said, the concept of throwing your weapons I always thought was really cool. Again, you can become huge size, so you'd be able to grapple creatures of a pretty large size by doing that, which is also pretty interesting. And, I have to think about it, but there might also be some interesting synergies with other classes as far as, like, multiclassing goes. Because you're able to change the damage type, you're also able to convert all of your weapon to that damage type. I forget if the updated version of the Tempest Cleric can still do that thing where they get to increase their damage to maximum damage. It actually slipped my mind. I'm going to see if I can pull it up here in the meantime. And we'll see. Guided Strike, War God's Blessing, Tempest Domain. Here we go. Where are you? Oh, wait. Did they not do... They didn't do that. That's right. Tempest Domain is not one of the ones they included in the updated rules. That's right. So, anyway, my point being where you could switch your entire weapon's damage to that damage type. So right here. right? While you wield the infused weapon during your rage, the weapon's damage type changes to the chosen type. So if you were to, say, multi-class this barbarian with the Tempest cleric, where you have that ability to use your channel divinity to maximize any thunder or lightning damage you do, you could potentially be comboing this with brutal critical, doing a whole bunch of damage, and then tap into the concept of your Tempest cleric ability and just have the damage be a maximum number, which is pretty cool. So like I said, all in all, Path of the Beast Barbarian, good, interesting, definitely thematic. I do agree to some extent the concept of like why their weapon teleports back to their hand when they throw it. What does that have to do with giant culture? I mean, you can make the same argument about the elemental damage to some degree. Either way, I like the class a lot. Like I said, it didn't really resonate with me personally as like, oh man, I can't wait to play a barbarian and play this. Like if I were to play it, I'd probably have a good time and enjoy it, but it just didn't really catch me or hook me, as you will. So anyway, let me know your thoughts and opinion on this in the comments down below. And next time we'll cover the backgrounds. So stay tuned.